Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Susan Muirhead, and I'm the Associate Director of the new Brand Hub that just started earlier this year at the University of Illinois. We're based in the Department of Advertising in the College of Media, and we're very excited to do our first community workshop. This is our first one this fall. And thank you very much to Lodgic, the Champaign Public Library, and the Urbana Free Library for partnering with us on this event. We hope to do many more in the future. So the mission of the Brand Hub is to bring community, industry, faculty, and students together. And we really are trying to promote experiential learning to our College of Media students, more professional development opportunities, and then of course, more community engagement with workshops like this one. So we also, in addition to doing more workshops in the future, we hope to partner with local businesses to do consultations or clinics also in the future. So please let us know if you're interested in working with us. We'd be more than happy to connect with you and find out what your needs are and then try to serve you as best as we can. Thank you for coming today. We're really happy that you're here, and I'm so glad that you're able to have Marissa speak with you. She's amazing. Marissa Peacock is leading our session today. She is a faculty member in the Department of Advertising, as well as a professional social media strategist, right? She has her own a company called the Strategic Peacock. She is the chief strategic consultant there. So not only does she teach, she is actively involved in the industry. So thank you very much, Marissa. I will pass it over to her.
All right, and my slides are not advancing anymore, so I don't know what's going on.
Stop my share for a second. All right, here we go. Thank you so much for being here today and joining me online and in person. So just real quick about me, my name is Marissa Peacock, and I am a full-time lecturer in the Department of Advertising in the College of Media at the University of Illinois. I've also, for the past 10 plus years, have been a social media consultant with my own firm called the Strategic Peacock. And so we work with firms of all sizes, or organizations of all sizes, to help them optimize their online presence. And doing social media strategy, doing social media management, and brand audits, overall. So I'm very excited to be here. And so on the topic of audience analysis, there are many ways that obviously you can approach learning more about your audience online. Those who follow you on social media, those who visit your website, or those just who participate with you in the online space, and even in person. But it all really begins with relationship marketing. So the idea of relationship marketing is that it's designed to facilitate customer loyalty, right? So relationships make us learn about other people. And when we learn about other people, we become familiar with them and we share common interests and shared values. And that makes us more, invested in the other person. So from a business standpoint, relationship marketing is getting to know your customers and letting them get to know you so that you can better promote your businesses, your services, and start to see customers as actual people and not just, random people in the world or, dollar signs or things like that. When they start to become people, we can actually develop these very strong relationships with them that instill loyalty and trust and authority. Investing in customers can be costly. And so if we develop a long-term relationship with them, it's there to pay off in the long run, right? We're not having to find new customers. And those customers that we've established these relationships with can promote us to their networks and sort of, facilitate that marketing in return. So at the core, relationship marketing is about people. And so when we are looking to see who our audience is, we want to make sure that we're seeing people, regular human beings. And I think that takes a lot of the pressure off too, because I think when we think about audience demographics or audience analysis, we're thinking numbers. But if we start thinking of that each one of those numbers represents an actual human being, it kind of takes the pressure off. We know how to talk to human beings. We don't necessarily know how to talk to numbers. And it, again, it makes it more comfortable. It brings it down to the level that, we're used to, doing. And the idea of being on social media is that it's social. It's interaction with other human beings. So if I think we kind of think about it from that perspective, it becomes a little less scary, maybe a little less overwhelming. When we understand people, it definitely gives us some power, right? And not power in, the absurd sense, but we now can start to relate and leverage our offerings and our services and our products to them in a way that's relevant, in a way that's helpful for them. So we have power that we can then provide to our audience because we're meeting their needs, we're meeting their expectations, rather than just throwing random things and, hoping that it works. As we begin to leverage those behaviors, we then can create influence. When we become known in our communities through our customers of people who deliver valuable interactions and valuable services, we become influencers in our community. People are going to turn to us for their needs. They could probably buy our product anywhere, but they're choosing to buy it from us because they've developed these relationships with us, and there's a deeper meaning behind, their purchase or their decision to buy from us. So that influence really can only be manifested through this relationship marketing and getting to know our customers as real people, to understand what their needs and expectations are, so that we can be delivering, those products and services, which can over time sort of builds our influence. Influence obviously comes from having power, but influence, when it's done right, is essentially just giving people what they're looking for when they're looking for it, and sort of becoming that trusted resource online or in your community. So let's get started. So when we kind of start talking about audience analysis, we want to understand who our audience is. And so we're not going to spend too much time talking about that right now, because there are a lot of resources you can turn to, but we're going to just talk briefly about how you might do it if you were interested in, and if you have other questions about that, we can talk about that later. So the data does come in handy, right? And so there are a lot of places where we can glean this data from. There's a lot of data out there, so it can be easily overwhelmed to just be like, which one do I look to? What data sources should I be looking at to give me some more information about who my audience is? So if you are sort of starting out or revisiting the idea of engaging your audience, you might want to start with a really broad view. So the Pew Research Center annually puts out the state of social media. And I think I provided the commentator with links, so you can take a look at this if you want to dive deeper into it. So every 9 months to a year, they refresh this data, they add new social networks. But essentially what they're doing is looking at who is using social media in the United States and really breaking it down into demographics, gender, by race, by location, so it's usually urban, suburban, or rural, by socioeconomic, by education, and really taking a broad view. Who is using these different platforms, and how do they categorize themselves? Then they're going to they go even deeper that says, okay, which platforms are they using the most frequently? And it says you can kind of map out to sort of, think about your target audience, if you will, and sort of say, oh, who are they? They're women in their 30s who live in suburban neighborhoods. Okay, what platforms align with that demographic? You can also sort of work backwards. Okay, we're going to look at who our current audience is based on the networks that we already are active on. Okay, who is using those networks predominantly? Okay, that might become our audience that we want to target to. So there's many ways you can use this data to sort of inform you, but it's a jumping off point. Other things you might want to look at is the data reportal puts out a global snapshot of social media in the world. So this is a global report. So if you are an e-commerce business of any kind, you are now a global business. You can sell to anyone, anywhere, at any time. So it might be helpful for you to understand where is that audience and where are they most active? So these reports actually get put out usually on a quarterly basis. And they give you really high level, but then they can really give you in-depth information about what times of day, what's the most active platform, how are people using this. So again, it's just more information to sort of inform where your audience could be on these platforms, and to sort of get you started, or help you kind of hone in on your audience. You can also look to your social media insights. So all of the social media platforms now provide basic analytics. So you can see what times of day is most active, what posts have been the most engaging. And so again, this can give you more information. And information is great, but it's what you do with this information that's going to help you be better at promoting your services and developing your online presence. So I want to talk about social technographics. So this is one of my favorite topics. When we think of audience analysis, we think of demographics, we think of psychographics. Technographics is how people are using technology. How are they engaging on these social media platforms? And so it's sort of market research that segments different users across different platforms based on their behaviors. And what we learn from this when we're looking at social technographics is it becomes really, really clear that not all social media users are the same. Just because if you look at the Pew Research data, a majority of, US adults are using Facebook and YouTube doesn't mean they're using them in the same way. So it can be easy to say, oh, I need to be on Facebook or I need to be on YouTube to promote my business. But if you don't really understand how people are using those platforms, it doesn't really give you enough information. So back in 2007, Forrester Research, right at the dawn of social media, they started studying people's behaviors on social media. And over the years, they've developed this model further to keep up with trends, but essentially the basic principle still remains. And so they developed this ladder, which classifies consumers into 7 overlapping levels of social technology participation. And so in the bottom rung of the ladder, you have inactives. One rung up is spectators, then joiners, then collectors, critics, conversationalists, and at the very top are those coveted creators. So we're going to explore these types of behaviors and to understand what you can do to better serve these types of users based off of their behaviors. So let's look at the bottom rung first. So joiners, spectators, and inactives. So when we think of inactives, we probably all know someone like this. We might even be this person. We're on social media, but we're not on social media, right? We may have a profile that we use to sign up for something. These people don't even really have a profile photo, or if it is, it's very outdated. They're just there because someone one day told them they should be there. And it's not really something that they gravitate towards. So they become inactive. Then there are spectators. Most of us probably fall into this category, at least initially, as we have adapted to social media. And spectators, even though they're at one of the bottom rungs in the ladder, they're actually one of the most influential groups. So spectators read everything. They watch everything. They are consuming every article that you're posting, every review that's been posted, but they themselves are not going to contribute. They're not going to like your post. They're not going to share your post. They're not going to comment on your post. Their engagement is really limited to consuming it for their own knowledge, their own education, which makes them a highly influential person. Because if someone were to ask them their opinion properly in real life, they would know how your product works, how it's regarded by the public, your latest case study, your best video. They are well informed. They just don't feel a need to do anything more beyond consuming that media. Now, maybe over time, they will emerge from that spectator and maybe they'll become a joiner. And a joiner is a person who signs up and maintains multiple profiles on social media. They are active, But again, they're not necessarily engagers. They're joiners. They're going to sign up for your email. They're going to, they have an Instagram profile. They're on Twitter. They're on Facebook, and they will take initiative. But again, it's just one step above that spectator. But again, you're not going to look to your joiners to necessarily amplify your message. They'll participate. But again, they're not necessarily taking, not necessarily commenting or reviewing or contributing beyond the act of getting more information from you. So joiners, again, are a great part of your audience to you engage on their level. We can get them to sign up for activities and events for them to learn more, but it's going to probably stay right there. So if we're looking and sort of comparing each one of these audiences, the difference between an inactive and a spectator is that an inactive user may not intend to stay connected to a brand. They may like it, maybe their friend started a business and they're going to like it because they want to help, but they're not really in it for any sort of brand communication. So again, you might have several inactives on your page, but they're not doing anything more. They have no intent to do anything more than that. Whereas spectators are interested, but they've not yet been compelled to go beyond watching and occasionally liking or favoriting something. So they have potential, right? And sometimes they just need to be asked, because a lot of times spectators, we just like to sit back and observe. But maybe if someone says, hey, what did you think about this? Or how would you rate this experience? Or are you finding what you're looking for? We can kind of bring them out of their shell. A lot of these behaviors are very similar to how we demonstrate ourselves in person, right? If I have a store and someone comes in and they're just browsing and they're just looking, and I come up to them and say, hey, can I help you find anything? They're like, no, I'm just looking. They might come back to your store again after they have browsed 100 other stores because yours offered the best, but they're not ready to make up a commitment right then. So again, it's your job to sort of give them as much information about your products and services so that they can be absorbing that they can be consuming that. If you're not giving them anything to consume or watch, they're going to go somewhere else and get it from some other source. So spectators, again, are a great audience, that you might not give you, on the page engagement, but they're definitely learning more about you and forming opinions. And again, it's sort of a long-term relationship you're building with those spectators. When it comes to spectators versus joiners, spectators, again, are interested, but they haven't been compelled. They could be. But joiners are present and they want to maintain their own profile and cultivate their own network. And they're also absorbing information to, become more influential, right? We all have joiners. These are the people who drag us to events. These are the people, who get us to accompany them to something that we probably wouldn't do. So they're influential in their own way. But they're in it for themselves in a way. They're joining not so that they can become, their network's greatest influencer, but they're trying to learn from other people. They're trying to advance their own knowledge. So they're still interested in community building and network building, but kind of more on their own terms. So as we go further up the ladder, we get to the 4 C's. Now, these are the behaviors that most people want from their online interaction. This is where real engagement starts to happen. And so collectors are those that consume and they're saving information. They're not necessarily interacting with it. A little bit different than spectators in that spectators are consuming, but they're not necessarily collecting it. They're not saving things to read for later. They're not necessarily curating lists, maybe to share with other people, even sort of indirectly. So these are people that might have a favorites list or a wish list on different platforms, on different consumer sites that other people can see, but they're not actively sharing them as a means of influence. But they're aware that they have an interest and they have a niche. So collectors can sometimes feed that part of your audience that is more than just a general audience. They have an active interest in something, so they're going to actively pursue articles and information that relate to that. So it could be how-to articles, right? Or they're favoriting or creating playlists on their YouTube channel of, their favorite recipes, or they're on Pinterest and they're putting together a pin board based off of, their dream vacation home or things like that. So they're collecting a lot of intelligence and they're organizing it in a way that's beneficial to them, but still other people can participate in their collection. Critics are those who are posting and writing their own reviews independent of the brand. So these are people who might go on their Twitter and say, oh my God, I just had the best meal at this restaurant, or I just had the worst interaction with this company. These are the people who may be taking photos of themselves and posting on Instagram, sharing their product experience, maybe doing unboxing reviews on YouTube. They're not yet to the level of content creators. They're more in it because they have an opinion that they want to share. And so again, still a level of influence. We look to the critics in our friends and family network because we know they have an opinion and we can benefit from them. And if they are a trusted resource, we trust that opinion a little bit more than some random person. Critics also play a crucial role in keeping the content creators honest, right? And they, making sure that they're posting very authentic information. They're going to call them out if they see anything is sort of, communicated poorly or seems to be sort of, presenting an alternate reality of things. So critics are very important to the social infrastructure. But into a business, they can either be someone who's really, active in criticizing a business, or they can be someone who's very active in promoting the business. And if they are in a critical sense for a business, it's an opportunity for you to reach out and listen to that person, because critics really just want to be validated. They want to be listened to. If you are receiving negative feedback on Twitter, for instance, the best thing for you to do is not to take a defensive pose, but to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry that was your experience. Tell me more. How could we have improved that? What can we do to make this better? And most times you will find the critics will say, oh, thanks. No, I was just frustrated in the moment, because they're not used to someone coming up to them and saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened. So you can take your critics and convert them into brand ambassadors and loyal customers just by reaching out to them and saying, hey, that's a great experience that you shared, or I'm so sorry you had that experience. Help us be better. And that's a role they will actively take on. And furthermore, if you are getting feedback from your customers, letting them know that not only did you receive that feedback, but that you put that feedback into action can then further strengthen those relationships with them. So if, a lot of customers are saying, oh, I wish this pillow came in blue, and you eventually are able to go work with your wholesalers to get a blue pillow, post something and says, hey, we heard you. Thank you so much for your suggestions. We now offer this in blue. They're going to feel listened to. They're going to feel as if their feedback matters, and it's going to give you more intelligence over time from your audience, which is going to make you better at your job. Then we have conversationalists. And so conversationalists are those who constantly update their social media status, are asking interesting questions of their community. They're sharing stories with others. And as a result of that, they are creating this very safe, fun, engaging space on social media. So these might be people who, start off every morning that says, hey, tell me 3 things great that, you're happy about today. Or tell me, what your experience is with this company. I'm looking to buy a new product. And they have a following that wants to contribute. So not only are they wanting to have conversations, the people in their network are wanting to have conversations back. So they're really putting the social in social media. And if you're a business, or you have a product or service, chances are people are talking about you, they're probably just not tagging you in those conversations. So this is where social listening comes in handy. You could just literally be typing in a keyword in the search to see what people are talking about you. And you can insert yourself into those conversations. Oh my God, thank you so much. We're so glad that you're talking about us. We'd love to see you in the store, or here's a promo code. Again, kind of engaging people. And if they're not saying anything positive about you, saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry that you're having this experience. This wasn't our intent. We would love to have you back. How can we help you? Again, inserting yourself into that conversation is what the conversationalist wants. These are the fun people at cocktail parties. These are the cool people at networking events. They're the ones having fun and telling stories and learning from other people. They themselves may be the main influencer, but they are creating this web of connections between people. So they are networkers and they thrive off of this. And then at the very top, you have creators. And without creators, there's nothing for us to criticize. There's nothing for us to talk about. There's nothing for us to consume. So without creators, everything sort of falls apart on social media. So we need them. They're the ones creating content, user-generated content, content that can be reshared. If you have an audience full of content creators, this is the best case scenario. They're going to be creating content for you. You can ask them to create content. You can give them calls to action. If you have a tag on every product that when it ships says, hey, take a photo of this and share it on social media and tag us. These are the people who are going to do it. And so again, they want to be a part of the conversation. They want to influence with what they're doing. And they covet this role of content creator. So again, if you have content creators in your audience, you can be resharing their information, resharing their posts, sort of tagging them and kind of giving them shout outs, making them feel involved. They also might become your influencer marketers, or your brand ambassadors, or your most loyal customers, who then can be sharing their content out in the world. So if we're going to start comparing again, so collectors love information and consume content, and they're curating that collections to educate, influence others, maybe, but just not directly. Again, everyone can look at their wish lists or their best of lists or their, the most, their best items, and they're influencing people sort of indirectly. Critics have opinions, and their reviews guide purchases and others. So critics are actually, so there's something called the zero moment of truth. Google sort of developed this theory, whereas, so it used to be that the first moment of truth was your interaction with the product. Google says, no, there's a zero moment of truth before the first moment of truth, and that's what you learn from other people. So if you're in the market for a new car and you ask your friend, hey, what do you think of your car? And they say, nope, I regret buying it. That's your zero moment of truth. That is going to influence the next step in that user purchase. They're going to regard that opinion of their friends very validly, and they're going to use it to do, to look at another car. If that is a very positive moment of truth, and they said, oh, absolutely, I would recommend this to anyone, it's the best car I've ever driven, then that's going to influence the next step that they make. So critics are sometimes that zero moment of truth. If I'm wanting to try a new restaurant in the neighborhood, I'm going to go to Yelp and I'm going to see what people have been saying. And if I'm savvy, I'm going to look to the person who writes reviews all the time, and I'm going to see, I trust that person. That's the one who's gone to a bunch of restaurants and they understand. If I'm booking a hotel, I'm going to go to TripAdvisor and see what people said about it based off of, their previous experiences. So again, critics hold a lot of weight and can help determine whether or not a customer even gets to decide whether or not they're going to collect information about you. Conversationalists have something to say, and they like to be in the know, and they like to share via word of mouth. So again, conversationalists don't necessarily have the most in-depth information, but they're talking about it nonetheless. So again, if they hear of a new restaurant, they're going to know about it but they maybe have not yet tried it. So they're still in that word of mouth, and they can still greatly influence what you have to say. I think of conversationalists as people who say, I read an article, I read the first line of that article. So that's the conversationalist. They don't need to have to know all of the information. They just have to know enough to sort of get people talking. And then creators are the social media engine. The content gives the conversationalist something to talk about, and they often work together so they can spread content. I do this all the time. If there's an event that I want to promote, and maybe it doesn't get the lift that I want the first couple of times that I've shared it, I will go to the conversationalist in my network and say, hey, could you retweet this? Or could you like this? Or could you comment on this? And they're more than happy to do this. They love it. And their networks are inspired by that share. So sometimes all it takes is one retweet, and it amplifies it, 10 times, 100 times more than you could ever done with your network. So knowing who these conversationalists are can help amplify the topics that you really want to talk about. Okay, so now that you know all of this, now we're sort of looking at the behaviors of your audience, not just the different platforms that they're using, but essentially how they're using it. Now, every brand is different. Every brand's followers has a different level of engagement from their followers. I have yet to meet a business has identical followers, right? I could have one brand who has a whole bunch of conversationalists and joiners and critics, and then I'll have another audience that's just full of spectators, and it's night and day. So ways that you might identify your spectators are do you notice any sort of frequent guests, right? The people who might like from time to time, they're not going to do anything more than that. Or they come into your store regularly, but maybe don't buy. They're just there to peruse and kind of check out the scene. They maybe sit in the back of the room. They're taking notes. These people are very valuable to you because they're consuming your information. So if you think that you have more spectators than others, your job is to give them information that you think they need. So you can be learning from them. You're not going to get direct information from them. If they're in your store, you might be able to ask them those questions, but if you ask them online, they're not going to reply. But we can sense to say, okay, I'm going to share a post about this. Did they click on it? Are they watching this video? So again, you can start to put out things to kind of gauge their interest. But we want to think about what their customer journey looks like. And by that, I mean, what is going to convert a spectator into a customer? Is it someone who needs to know the value or the sustainability behind your product or your design or the company story that's going to compel them to take that next action? So sometimes our best storytelling is told to spectators because that's the information that they're looking for and they're not really finding else. And because they're consuming a lot more information, they can kind of compare people's stories and say, oh, I really like this business. This is a woman-owned business, or this is a local business and they're using, local artisans to source their materials. That matters to me. So that type of information can help move spectators further up the ladder. You want to leverage your influencers. So again, if there are people who are already creating content about your product or service, reach out to them. Thank you so much. That's so great. I love this video. Can I share it? Can I tag you in the post? Reach out to them, start to make those inroads with them. It's going to make them feel special. And it's going to give you access to someone who's already talking about it. And that's the best form of conversation, are those organic types of conversations. Invite them to your events. Invite them to sort of behind the scenes tours. Give them special access as you're able to, because again, they're going to use that. They're going to feel special, and they're going to use that special access to influence others. And if you're delivering promotional content, meaning paid advertising, you can customize your target audience. Look for the brands and the celebrities, the followers of those brands and celebrities who are highly engaged. So again, if you are following the followers of Oprah, they are probably going to be more influential in their networks, right? Because they're sharing that information. They are influenced by other people, and therefore they like to influence others. So again, think sort of outside your target audience by the people who are influencing your target audience to sort of get your message in front of them if you're using any sort of paid social. My favorite part of how you can be putting all this information to use is it gives you an opportunity to get personal and to create these surprise and delight moments. If you're a small business, you can do this in ways that large businesses can't, although large businesses do this too, and it can be quite successful. If you have an audience full of joiners and spectators and maybe collectors who are a little bit more quiet than the others, reach out to them, email them, and or offer them, reach out to them privately and offer them, coupon codes or promotional codes, or just sort of have conversations with them. Hey, I see that you read every blog post or you click on every link. How are you? How can we best serve you? Is there anything that you need from us? Those individual touch points are going to go a long way and making them feel valued. You can reward customers spontaneously. On Pinterest, if you see that someone has tagged your product to their board, you can reach out to them and maybe offer them a promo code or a discount code or special access, or just say, hi, thanks so much for sharing this pin. This is one of our favorite products too. Again, just creating those random delightful moments can create word of mouth experiences. Chewy.com does this. They, when you sign, so Chewy is a pet food company that can deliver food to your door. After you sign up, you might get a special little postcard that's handwritten, and it says, "Oh my God, we're so excited that you and your pet are customers." They have like a little paw print stamp, and it's like, we look forward to working with you. And then someone's real name is signed on it. It's written in real ink. It's something that you don't expect, but helps solidify that relationship. Are we on time?
No,
oh.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
Chewy,
Yes.
I read online, someone had just got dog food. Their dog unfortunately passed away.
Oh.
Chewy gave them their money back and sent them roses.
Oh.
And then they got online and they told everybody about it. And so it was authentic.
Exactly.
And so many people were like, you know what, we're going to shop with you because that is.
Absolutely. And that shows that they know their audience. People who have pets, they love their pets, like their family. And so again, those small touch points, they don't cost a lot of money, but they can make really long-lasting customers and relationships in the long term. So yeah, exactly. These surprise and delight moments that people don't expect can have these word-of-mouth moments that you can't help but talk about because they were so special to you. I had a moment. So of course, I have a dog, and of course, my dog has pet insurance. And so I had tweeted that my dog was having surgery, and my pet plan insurance tweeted back to me and said, "Oh, we're so sorry to hear about Samson. We wish him a speedy recovery." Right? They knew my dog's name. They didn't have to, I didn't provide any information, and they provided a really nice touch point. And then a few weeks later, I got a handwritten note and a $5 gift card to Petco that just said, "Thanks for being a follower. We're so glad that you're a part of our family." Right? I'm now telling you this story because this happened to me, right? When you don't expect these things, especially from large organizations, but with small businesses, you have such a more cultivated audience that those moments can spread like wildfire through a small community because they're nice. It reinforces your values. It reinforces that you really do care about your customers. So go the extra mile to give a personal touch they can't ignore. This doesn't have to be costly, and it doesn't have to be necessarily consistent. And you can involve your employees to sort of say, okay, who are we going to send a card to this month? Or who wants to write the postcard to our new customers? Again, when you get people involved in it, it becomes something you want to do. And when you want to do something, you're excited about it, you're passionate about it, and that is communicated to your audience. So all of this put together is up, now gives you a great opportunity for you to say, okay, what types of engagement are valuable to me and to my audience? What do I want my audience to do? And what, you know, and what am I willing to do to sort of get that reaction and engagement from them? Okay, do I need more behind the scenes photos? Do I need to be putting out case studies and you know, and writing more blog posts? So again, depending on the type of information that your audience is really interested in, your spectators want to consume and learn more about your organization. Your conversationalists want something to talk about that's new and fresh and interesting. And maybe your content creators want something that they can, you know, be creating content to get the attention of other people. So think about those touch points, think about your users' behavior and see how you can be meeting them. And this approach is a little bit more tangible and appropriate, because I think when we think of social media content, we're like, oh my God, I have to produce this great video, or I have to, you know, constantly be producing content on a regular basis. This sort of hopefully takes a little bit of the pressure off, because now you can see the types of information that your audience wants, and when they want it, you can see a direct relationship with it, rather than just creating content for the sake of creating content and hoping that it's exactly what they want. So thinking about your customers, your current customers, what are their current behaviors? How can you be tailoring your content? You might have to temper your expectations. So I work with a bagel shop in the Washington, D.C. area who has a very loyal audience. And so on social media, we could be asking questions like, hey, it's Monday, what's everyone's favorite bagel? And there'll be 20 comments deep, you know, listing off their different flavors that they love. They're not getting the bagel, but they can't wait to share that information with us. And so then, you know, there are other networks that if I ask a question, it's crickets. Okay, that tells me something. That isn't that my content, you know, isn't right, or that I don't have an audience that doesn't want information or isn't engaged. That's just not what they're comfortable doing. And, you know, social media, again, is about being social, but it's also about making people feel comfortable and safe in these spaces, that you're not forcing them to do anything they don't want to do, because we all know when we don't want to do something, we just sort of want to retreat, and no degree of coercion is going to make us want to do it anymore. So we have to kind of meet them and then, you know, demonstrate that we value them and that we're listening to them, and then slowly maybe kind of bring them out of their shell so that they feel more comfortable contributing or engaging with us in different platforms. But if you invest in learning more about your customers, they will definitely invest in learning more about you. The customer experience is the thing that is going to make you stand apart from other businesses. Again, we all could be making widgets in, you know, this, you know, offering the same type of product, but it comes down to how is it made? Where is it made? What is the story behind it? Who are the people that are selling it? How does this product make me feel? How does this product help me in my life? What value does it add? So if you can start creating information that speaks and answers those different questions, that is what's going to set your company apart from the one down the street. And those are the types of, you know, information that a lot of customers are looking for and they're not getting. It's very hard to sometimes learn about the story or the people behind the scenes. When we feel connected to a company, we want to be a part of their success. And so I leave it there. Are there any questions? How are we on time? Oh, perfect. Okay. Any questions, comments, feedback? Yes.
So I have some social media interns at the Brand Hub, and this is very helpful because I think I've been, you know, we have the different platforms that we're using, but we kind of come up with a strategy for the content, and then we put it out there, and it's all the same on all platforms. So now I'm hearing kind of like, okay, maybe differentiate that a little bit more because I want that engagement.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And what you post on LinkedIn is not maybe the same thing you're going to post on Instagram.
Right.
It's like a different audience. And then I also hear you in terms of like engaging more with the audience. You know, like there's prior people helping you connect with them. The one thing I don't really know about is influencers.
Yes.
Like, how do I know? Like I'm so out of touch. How do I know that someone's an influencer? I mean, certainly, like I guess I can see their Instagram is followed by a million people, but like, how do I find those influencers to leverage?
Yeah, so there are a few things you can look at. And one, influencers don't always have the largest audience. They're just the most influential in their audience. So there's these things called niche influencers or micro influencers. And this could be you. This could be your friends and family. They don't have to follow a lot of people, but the people that follow them are going to listen to what they have to say. And this type of influence is sometimes the most beneficial because, yes, I could be a spokesperson for a very large company or an influencer for a very large company and have 1 million followers, but only 10% are going to engage. If I have 500 followers and I can get 500 people to engage, my engagement rate is now 100%. Even if it's 50%, I'm still beating the big brand. So it's not necessarily about how many people you're influencing necessarily, but the degree in which they want to be influenced. So look to your comments, look to see if people are tagging people in their comments. Something you can do as sort of a test is so you can give the user something to do. And if they do it, kind of make a mental note that this might be someone that you want to pay a closer attention to. So, hey, we have this upcoming event, tag 5 friends that you would love, to show this, to promote this event to. Or we have a new product, tag 5 friends that you think would love this product. Not only does that get you to know who those influencers are because they're the ones that are going to tag their friends and family, but now you've used their influence to amplify your message to this audience that sort of exists beyond your original scope. So again, a lot of finding your influencers is sort of trial, experimentation, and you can do really fun things. So back to the bagel store in Washington, D.C., she will use, Twitter pretty regularly, and every once in a while, just because she feels like it, she'll put out a message, at noon on Tuesday, and it will say, the next 10 people that come into my store and yell peace, love, and bagels will get 50% off their order. And she will put that message only on Twitter. And she knows if 10 people come into her store and yell peace, love, and bagels, that those people saw her on Twitter. And if 10 people don't come in the store, she knows, well, maybe Twitter wasn't the right platform for that message, and maybe I'm going to try a different one next day. And so when you're creating a surprise and delight moment, the person who happens to be paying attention to that hopefully can capitalize on that delightful, engagement. But it's also giving her really good information. Who are those people who are paying attention? And again, so maybe if you get 10 people to come in the store, you ask to take a selfie with them, or you ask them to say, hey, can you please tweet about this experience? Tell us how great this bagel was, or things like that. So giving your audience something to do will bring out the people who want to be doing that. And if it doesn't bring out the people who are doing it, you don't have an audience full of influencers. And that's okay too, but now you know, and you can do other things. You can be putting out information that's helpful for them, to educate them, and hopefully, promote your brand, more substantially. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions? Yes.
It's super interesting, and the whole idea of spectators.
Yeah.
And it's giving me like some light bulbs.
Oh, yay.
It's really cool. But I tie what you're describing to great advice I got at one point to. If you're going to boost a post, boost one that's already super popular.
Yes.
And it goes along with what you're saying and think about making people feel comfortable. Well, 100 people already like.
Right.
So you can put on normally like a post, you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
So I love that, and I love also the way experiments can just blow up in a way you don't expect.
Absolutely.
Like one for us is at the library. It's what are you reading? And
Yeah.
It's the simplest question, but I've seen it just go crazy.
Oh yeah, people love to share.
It's one of the questions that somebody who's reticent and might not normally contribute. They can't help themselves. They have to tell you what they're reading. So
Exactly.
it comes to space where so it's interesting, and I think it changes over time.
Right.
If someone's following the page for a while, I mean, there's like, well, do they see your post?
Yeah.
Right there, but once they've seen it a few times, people said, so like continuing an experiment like that.
Yeah.
It does get better.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. You can see that person sort of grow in their comfort level as well and their engagement. But you bring up a really great point. So sometimes a spectator, I think we all do this. No one really wants to be the first one to raise their hand or first one to offer up a comment. So if you can enlist your brand ambassadors and your conversationalists and say, hey, I'm going to post a question. It would be really awesome if you could reply, because you're going to get people to see that it's okay to reply. No one wants to be the first one, but they'll be the third and the fourth. So again, using the people who are actively engaging with you and sort of giving them a role to play. One, it will make them feel valued. It will make them feel like you're paying attention to them, which you are, but they're also able to sort of mobilize an audience that kind of is the people who wait until someone else speaks. And they have valuable information to contribute, but they may never contribute unless they see other people do it first and sort of observe that it's okay and nothing bad happened. So again, you're kind of creating this, this reinforcement of it's okay to share. So thank you. Yeah.
So, you as your page post,
yes,
and you in your personal space.
Absolutely.
I encourage our staff to do
yes,
that. So
thank you.
Hard to create great content. Go ahead and like it in your personal page if you want.
Right. Absolutely. Employee amplification is one of the best ways to get your message out, because what demonstrates a whole bunch of things. One, that other people have liked it, but the people who are behind the scenes are excited about it. And so if I see that employees are excited about their own content, that makes me excited about it, right? So it helps to sort of reinforce, that message. The other thing, this works really well in like Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives, and these are, live Q&A. If you're afraid that no one's going to ask a question, plant people in the audience to ask questions. Give them a list of questions to ask. And then that will get other people thinking and people will join in. That is perfectly acceptable. And again, it creates the sense that there's community, that there's conversations, and people want to be a part of that. Even if they're observing from the outside, they're still engaging with it. So yeah, I think there are definitely ways for us to all sort of look at our community and see what behaviors they're demonstrating and kind of meet them where they are. Other questions, comments? Do we have anything online?
Yeah, kind of a roundabout to one of Susan's original
yeah.
questions, as far as posting same content on multiple platforms, especially for businesses starting out.
Yes.
Is that a good way to kind of see what's most popular for your potential audience?
Yes, I mean, there are definitely a variety of ways that you can go about posting content across the same content across different platforms. One, it's important to know that people who are following you on Facebook are probably not the same people that are following you on Twitter, who are following you on Instagram. That, the joiners might be there. And so it's very rare that you're going to have audiences who are following you across multiple networks. They usually have their preferred channel. And so again, you could be testing that to see if you have similar audiences across platforms. But timing really plays a big role too. So we know, if you post something on Facebook, if you posted that same message over and over again, it would sort of flood people's, feeds, and it would be repetitive and kind of a turnoff. But if you did that on Twitter, it's not so much of a turnoff, because the algorithm is different and people are looking at Twitter in real time at different times of day. So you could be putting out the morning message, you could be putting out the afternoon message and the evening message, even if it's all sort of all related, but people are going to be seeing it at different times. Learning people's behaviors as well. So are they looking at their Instagram feed, over their evening, glass of wine while watching HGTV, making sure that you're offering content that's going to be presented to them at that time, versus do you have a bunch of early birds, then I'm going to, post, some posts to Facebook and Twitter early in the morning, so that audience is to see them. It isn't that you necessarily have to tailor your message. It's more about timing and meeting them where they are to match their interests. I would encourage everyone to sort of tailor their content a little bit differently based on the information that you learn over time, using hashtags, using emojis, kind of making it a little bit more personable and less lectury, right? LinkedIn might be the perfect place for you to kind of give an in-depth explanation, but on Instagram, we just kind of want that summary caption that's going to complement our photo. So it might be the same thing that we're talking about, we're just positioning it in different ways. And I liken this to the way we do this in real life, where, I'm at a crowded bar and I have to, or I once was at a crowded bar and I would have to shout over people, and people would be like, what do you do? I'm not going to give them a lengthy explanation. I'm going to summarize it very concisely so that they can hear me over the music. But if I am, in a coffee shop for someone, I can have a more direct personal relationship and I can give them a lengthy explanation. So you kind of have to choose your moments and kind of understand, like, am I putting this message out in what is the, equates to be a very loud, noisy bar, or am I posting it in a place where they're most likely, engaging with this on a time that's suitable for them? So I think that is how you should be tailoring your content, not necessarily that you can't be putting out the same message across platforms. You just have to be doing it in different sort of ways that meet the interests of that audience. Does that make sense? All right. Yes.
Do you believe it's true? All of the seminar, they said the best time to put out content between 6 and 9 in the morning. That's the truth. Do you believe that that's
so? It is a rule of thumb. It really depends on the algorithm. So we know this to be, so it really depends on when you want most of your audience to see that message. Because so the algorithm on Instagram favors popular content. So that's why if I post something, you might not see it until 2 days from now, right? Because it didn't get, it took 2 days for a bunch of people to like it, and therefore it showed up as popular in your feed. So posting in the morning is never a bad thing because it kind of helps, give it a little bit of momentum so that when people are active on the platform, they're more likely to see that content. Overnight works as well. So if you want to publish something, in the evening so that by the morning it's hopefully sort of fresh in people's feeds, that's a good strategy. Twitter is obviously more in the moment. You can customize your feeds to show you the most popular content or the most up-to-date content. But most, I think, the defaults to the most timely information. So on Twitter, it would be, do you know your audience? Are they people who wake up in the morning and check their feeds or do it over their morning cup of coffee, or are they more likely doing it on their lunch break or in the evening? That's how I would structure those posts on Twitter. On Facebook, again, you can pretty much, you can get a sense for what time, so you could post in the morning. But again, it depends on your audience. So if you have an audience that's full of busy moms, morning and evening are going to be best. If you have an audience full of remote workers, noon, 3 o'clock is the best time, right? That's when they're going to be taking a break. That's when they're going to be looking through their feeds. We see those with email as well. It isn't that you shouldn't send an email on Monday or in the morning. It just know that they're probably not going to look at it until later in the week. But it might be still a good device to send it out so it's sort of fresh and they recognize it before they're overwhelmed and inundated with emails. So morning is a general rule, but depending on the algorithm, it could kind of take a little bit longer for it to reach most people. Was that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I heard you say something about not recreating the same content over and over, because it was like sometimes we may post something 3 times a week of the same exact deal. I have a volunteer landscape company.
Yeah.
We just put it out there to let people know what's really going on. But I thought I heard you say something about just recreating the same content over and over. Is it not helpful?
Well, on the same day, it wouldn't be helpful. So the same way we might do it on Twitter, we might put out the same message 3 times, in one day on Twitter to kind of capture different audiences at different times a day. If we did it on Facebook, it would become repetitive. What I would recommend for you to do is just sort of give people updates, right? So, hey, it's the 1st of the month. Here's what we do. Here's what should be on your checklist. Or it's, did you, a reminder, right? Oh, did you remember to book your scheduled, lawn maintenance? Or it's not too late. So there are different ways that you can be posting the same content, but just sort of reframing it to speak to your audience. If you're, you want to create maybe a sense of urgency. People respond really well to deadlines because we're all procrastinators. So if you tell them that there's only 3 slots left, they'll sign up. If you tell them that time is running out and this discount ends at the end of the week, they'll sign up. Someone the other day, I had a great conversation with someone who was trying to get people to sign up for his improv class. And we were talking about different ways to promote this, on community blogs and on social media. And I said, well, what was the trick? He's like, yeah, I got a lot of people to sign up. And I was like, that's great. What worked? He goes, payday. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He goes, people got paid on the 13th or they got paid on the 15th. And we saw the most signups in those 3 days. And so I was like, that's fascinating. And again, think about the resources that your audience has. So if, you know, again, everyone in the Champaign Urbana area who works at the university gets paid on the 15th. People in healthcare probably get paid on the 13th, right? So again, we can sort of narrow down. So if there's something that you want your audience to do, but they're going to need money to do it, try to target them in those areas when they are most likely to commit to that. So the reminders at the beginning of the month are great, but be sure to remind them on the 14th or on that 15th so that they can literally take action on it.
Thank you. The last one is you say about investing into your customers, so they're investing into you. This year we started with a birthday deal. So
oh, fun.
Birthday, you get a free cut.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, the problem is
okay.
November, December, January, February customers.
Right.
So now we're talking about, I guess, giving them a gift card for Christmas.
Okay.
Just to show them, it's about appreciation.
Yeah.
Like you say, small businesses can do a little bit more
than
large businesses. If you had 20,000 customers, that'd be kind of rough for you to give them a gift card. And we can give them all free cuts. But it's
right.
We just talking about the birthdays.
Yeah.
A few ladies said, well, my birthday is in December.
So right.
I like it. Now we got to send in the gift card.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think it's great. And I think, you know, the follow up too, because I think we get, you know, sometimes we get, you know, those $5 gift cards or whatever, and they're meaningful, but then we forget about them. So sometimes it's nice to reconnect and just sort of say, hey, you know, maybe it's your half birthday. Maybe you celebrate their half birthdays. And so if they have a January birthday, you're celebrating their half birthday in July, you know? So things like that can kind of keep them connected, even though your service is maybe not the most active at that moment. And you know, again, so even we see this with the customer journey. So just because someone has made a purchase doesn't mean they stop being valuable to you or stop being a customer. They just need to be connected. So making sure that you're sending them, you know, information that says, okay, I know it's winter, but here's what you could be doing to prep your lawn for the spring, or here are 3 easy things that you can do, or here, you know, doing something that's going to keep them engaged. So the next time, you know, it's spring and their lawn needs, you know, a mow, they're going to think of you first and not have to start over from zero. Yeah, no, that's great.
Quick question online.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for coming. Have a good day.
Business to business services and products tend to be very dry and technical.
Yes.
How do you encourage conversations and engagement?
Actually, really great question. So technical products, scientific products are obviously sometimes not the most interesting. So I always like to ask the question to my clients, what's the thing that you're the most excited about? Why are you passionate about lawn care? Why are you passionate about widgets? And start there, because people are attracted to enthusiasm, and your passion becomes their passion. And maybe they had not thought of that from that perspective. It also could be demonstrating use cases, right? Oh, I have this very technical thing, and I think it's only something that other businesses can benefit from. How can I benefit from it? So again, demonstrating those use cases. Sometimes the best way is to show the people behind the scenes. So, you know, again, I can get my, you know, car's oil changed anywhere, but if I am seeing the people behind the scenes or learning more about this company, then I'm going to choose them over somewhere else because I made this investment. I've learned more about them. Sometimes it's just being very honest and saying, yeah, this isn't very exciting, but it's necessary and there's value in this, and this is why you should care about it. And so, again, trying to find those relatable moments, I think, are the best things to do in those B2B and technical product situations. There's something that people will gravitate towards. It's just a matter of trying to find that great story. And again, it's kind of just relating it back to how it impacts the person, you know, specifically. You know, we don't generally care about things until it impacts us. And so your job is to get them to care about it because it impacts them in some way. So that's my best advice to that, which is just to find that story, find that fun, exciting piece that makes you excited about talking about it.
Thanks, appreciate the answer.
Yay, wonderful, awesome. Well, I think we're at time, a little bit over. So thank you everyone who participated. I really enjoyed talking to all of you. And here's my contact info if you have additional questions. And you can reach out to us at the brand hub as well. So thanks again. And I look forward to connecting with you in a few weeks for our next webinar. So take care, everyone. Bye.